Mary Catherine Edwards was a vibrant and respected school teacher living in Beaumont, Texas. At 31 years old, she was deeply loved by her family, friends, and students. Known for her dedication and warmth, Mary Catherine had recently moved into a new townhouse and was looking forward to the future. Her life, however, was tragically cut short in January 1995. On the evening of January 13, 1995, Mary Catherine was last seen by her acquaintances. When she failed to respond to phone calls the next day, her parents grew concerned. They decided to visit her home on Park Meadow Street to check on her welfare. What they found was a scene of horror that would haunt them and the community for decades. Mary Catherine Edwards was discovered lifeless in her bathroom. She had been sexually assaulted and slain, with her hands handcuffed behind her back. The cause of death was determined to be drowning. This brutal crime left her family and friends devastated and the community in shock. The initial investigation by the Beaumont Police Department and the Texas Rangers was exhaustive. The crime scene was meticulously examined for any evidence that could lead to the identification of the perpetrator. Forensic experts collected various samples, including DNA, from the scene. These samples were crucial, but, given the technology of the mid-1990s, they provided limited immediate leads. Nevertheless, they were preserved in the hope that future advancements might one day solve the case. Mary Catherine's friends, family, and colleagues were interviewed extensively to construct a timeline of her final hours. Investigators learned that Mary Catherine had a wide circle of friends and no known enemies, making it difficult to pinpoint any potential suspects. The initial theory was that the crime could have been committed by someone she knew, given the lack of forced entry and the brutality of the assault. The community of Beaumont was left in shock and fear, knowing that a brutal killer was still at large. Mary Catherine's demise cast a long shadow over the town, and her family was left to mourn without closure. The police continued to follow up on any new information that came in, but the trail remained cold for decades. As the years went by, the case of Mary Catherine Edwards' slaying seemed destined to remain unsolved. However, the relentless efforts of investigators and significant advancements in forensic technology eventually provided a breakthrough. By 2010, the emergence of genetic genealogy opened new possibilities for solving cold cases. Genetic genealogy involves using DNA testing combined with traditional genealogical methods to identify suspects through their family trees. This technique became instrumental in solving numerous cold cases, and Mary Catherine's case was no exception. In 2021, Beaumont Police and the Texas Rangers decided to revisit the case with the assistance of Othram, a company specializing in forensic-grade genome sequencing. This company had the capability to analyze degraded or small amounts of DNA that had been preserved from the crime scene. Othram's analysis led to a significant development, a DNA profile that could be compared against genetic databases. Investigators led by Detective Tina Llewellyn, who had spent countless hours working on the case in her spare time, began constructing a family tree from the DNA profile. This complex process involved identifying over 7,400 individuals, including relatives dating back to the 1800s. Eventually, the search was narrowed down to two brothers from Beaumont, one of whom was Clayton Bernard Foreman. Foreman had been a high school classmate of Mary Catherine Edwards at Forest Park High School. This connection, combined with the DNA evidence, made him a prime suspect. To confirm their suspicions, FBI agents conducted a trash pull at Foreman's residence in Ohio, where he had been living. They collected items such as plastic spoons, hair samples, and medicine bottles with Foreman's DNA on them. The DNA from these items matched the DNA found at the crime scene, providing the crucial link needed to charge him with the crime. On April 29, 2021, Foreman, then 61 years old, was arrested at his home in Franklin County, Ohio. This arrest came after a meticulous investigation that had spanned over 26 years. Foreman was soon extradited to Jefferson County, Texas, where he faced charges for the assault and slaying of Mary Catherine Edwards. The trial of Clayton Foreman began in earnest, with the prosecution presenting a robust case built on the newly obtained DNA evidence. Jurors were introduced to the science behind genetic genealogy, learning how investigators had used this cutting-edge technique to link Foreman to the crime scene. The prosecution detailed how DNA samples collected from the crime scene in 1995 were matched with DNA obtained from Foreman's discarded items during the trash pull in Ohio. During the trial, Beaumont Police Detective Tina Llewellyn and her team described their painstaking work in constructing a family tree from the DNA profile, ultimately narrowing it down to Foreman. Genetic genealogist Cheryl LaPointe testified about the process and its significance in solving the case. Jurors also heard emotional testimonies from Mary Catherine Edwards' family, including her twin sister. The defense attempted to challenge the DNA evidence and the methods used to obtain it, but their efforts were largely unsuccessful. The judge allowed the DNA evidence to be presented, and it became a cornerstone of the prosecution's case. Following that, the prosecution further presented chilling details about his past, highlighting similarities between Mary Catherine's slaying and a previous sexual assault case involving Foreman. This information played a crucial role in painting a picture of a man with a history of violent behavior, which significantly bolstered the prosecution's case. In 1981, Foreman was involved in a sexual assault case that bore striking resemblances to the slaying of Mary Catherine Edwards. In this earlier case, Foreman was accused of sexually assaulting a woman in a manner that had disturbing parallels to Mary Catherine's case. Both incidents involved a brutal sexual assault, and in both cases, the victims were left in vulnerable positions. These similarities suggested a pattern of behavior that was consistent with Foreman's actions in the 1995 slaying of Mary Catherine Edwards. The revelation of Foreman's violent past, combined with the DNA evidence linking him to the crime scene, created a compelling narrative for the jury. Therefore, on June 30, 2024, the jury found Clayton Bernard Foreman guilty of taking a life. Although the death penalty was not pursued, Foreman was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This verdict brought a long-awaited sense of closure to Mary Catherine Edwards' family and friends, ending a nearly 3-decade-long pursuit of justice. Today, Mary is remembered not only as a dedicated teacher and cherished member of her community, but also as a symbol of the enduring quest for justice. Her case, once a haunting mystery, now stands as a beacon of what can be achieved through the relentless pursuit of truth and the remarkable capabilities of modern forensic science. In the quiet town of Mound City, Missouri, Peggy Horseman, a 27-year-old woman, was working the night shift as a clerk at the King Oil Station on September 27, 1985. The King Oil Station was located in an isolated spot off Interstate 29, making it difficult to spot from the road. The surveillance equipment at the store was not operational at the time, adding to the challenges investigators would face. Around 3:30 a.m. on that fateful night, Peggy spoke with her employer, Mrs. Alexis Whittam. This was the last known interaction she had before the tragic event. Shortly after, an area motorist discovered Peggy's lifeless body inside the store. She had been shot in the back of the head at close range with a 16-gauge shotgun. Her body was partially in a beverage cooler, indicating she might have been trying to escape or hide. The initial investigation was led by local law enforcement with the assistance of the Holt County Sheriff's Office. The crime scene was meticulously examined, revealing critical but limited physical evidence. The shotgun shell casing found near Peggy's body was one of the few tangible pieces of evidence. However, the absence of operational surveillance cameras and the secluded location of the King Oil Station posed significant challenges. Investigators interviewed potential witnesses and nearby residents, hoping to find someone who might have seen or heard something unusual. Among them was Peggy Horseman's employer, Mrs. Alexis Whittam, as well. This conversation took place around 3:30 a.m., shortly before Peggy was killed. Investigators also looked into Peggy's personal life, questioning family members, friends, and acquaintances to determine if there were any potential leads or motives. Rumors and speculations circulated within the community, but none led to concrete evidence or suspects. The investigators faced a tough task as they tried to piece together the events leading up to Peggy's murder. The turning point in Peggy Horseman's case came in November 2022, when Holt County Sheriff Steve Portman hired Captain Terry Horner to reinvestigate the cold case along with other unresolved crimes in the county. Captain Horner brought fresh eyes and modern forensic techniques to the investigation, which had been stagnant for nearly 39 years. Horner's approach included a thorough re-examination of the physical evidence collected from the original crime scene. Advances in forensic technology since 1985 allowed for more sophisticated analyses that were not available to the original investigators. This included the retesting of the shotgun shell casing and other trace evidence. Captain Horner also conducted extensive interviews, revisiting witnesses who had previously been questioned and identifying new individuals who might have information. He spent countless hours reviewing old case files, reassessing alibis, and cross-referencing details that had been overlooked or dismissed in the initial investigation. One of the significant developments came from these renewed interviews and the careful re-examination of witness statements. Horner identified inconsistencies and gaps that pointed toward Kirby G. David, a resident of Oregon, Missouri, who had a history of criminal activity. David, born in 1962, was already incarcerated in the Missouri Department of Corrections for a felony charge unrelated to Peggy's murder. On March 17, 2020, David had started serving a 20-year sentence for the distribution of a controlled substance in a protected location. His criminal record and proximity to Mound City at the time of Peggy's murder placed him under suspicion. Further investigation revealed more compelling evidence linking him to the crime. Additionally, new testimonies from witnesses, who had either not been interviewed before or had come forward with new information, further solidified the case against David. Witnesses recalled seeing a man matching David's description near the King Oil Station around the time of Peggy's murder. Some remembered hearing rumors about David's involvement, but had not come forward earlier due to fear or uncertainty. Horner's persistent questioning and assurance of their safety encouraged these individuals to provide crucial details that had been missing for decades. Furthermore, Horner's reevaluation of David's criminal history showed a pattern of violent behavior and previous run-ins with the law that made him a viable suspect. David's proximity to Mound City at the time of the murder and his subsequent criminal activities painted a clearer picture of his potential involvement in the crime. The culmination of these efforts led Captain Horner to present his findings to the Holt County prosecuting attorney. By mid-2024, Horner's persistent efforts bore fruit. The evidence gathered was compelling enough for the Holt County prosecuting attorney to file a charge of first-degree murder against Kirby G. David. On July 31, 2024, the charge was formally announced. The nearly 39-year wait for justice for Peggy Horseman appeared to be nearing an end. The announcement was made public, bringing a mixture of relief and anticipation to the community of Mound City. It was a significant milestone, not only for Peggy's family and friends, but also for the broader community that had been haunted by the unsolved murder for so many years. If you find this video compelling, show your support by giving it a thumbs up, subscribing to our channel, and ringing that notification bell. By doing so, you'll stay updated about the latest investigations and mysteries. Your support means the world to us, as we continue to pursue the truth in the world of cold cases.